If I was starting all over again as a web designer, how would I go about finding those first few clients? If no one knew me, if I didn't have the connections, audience, and advantages that I have now? And after that, what would I do to build demand, become the go-to designer that everyone wants to work with, and book out months in advance? That's exactly what we're diving into in this video. This is your Getting Clients from Scratch guide as a beginner. I'm going to divide this video into two different sections. First, we're going to talk about finding clients this week. Getting a first few clients to get your toes wet, working with clients, earning your first few dollars as a designer, and building up your portfolio. And then second, we're going to discuss long-term marketing strategies and how to build the demand for months and years down the road, which leads to you booking out your design calendar months in advance. Step number one for finding clients this week, let's take a look at our options. First, personal connections. Second, groups of ideal clients. And third, pitching. Now let's go through each so you fully understand the different options. When it comes to personal connections, I was actually chatting with a designer who told me how she got a first client while walking down the aisle as a bridesmaid at a wedding. A past student of mine, Carly, was paired up with a groomsman at a friend's wedding, and as they were getting to know each other just before heading down the aisle, he asked her what she did for work. She had just been laid off by her job and decided to become a web designer. And even though she had some imposter feelings about claiming the title of web designer when she was just getting started, she told him confidently, "I'm a web designer," to which he said, "Oh, I just started a business and I need a website. After we walk down this aisle, we should chat." Carly landed him as a client, and from then on knew that it was well worth it to get over her fear and claim the title of web designer, even if she was just starting. Now I want you to do this too. Make it a challenge for yourself that wherever you're going this week, whoever you're meeting in your life, whether that's at the school gates, dropping your kids off, or at your yoga class, or while meeting friends of friends at a party, start telling people that you offer web design services. When you meet someone in real life, and especially if you have some sort of personal connection to that person, you're so much more likely to land that project, even if you maybe don't have as much experience as those designers who are really well established online. You can even take this one step further by specifically reaching out to any personal connections who you know who run a business and tell them you do web design now and offer to work with them on creating the new site of their dreams. Now, go into your phone and look at every single contact in your phone book. Go onto every social media platform that you have and look through all the friends and family who you have on there. Take note of all the times you're going to leave the house this week and think about who might you come across or meet when you're out and about. Now, if you're nervous about speaking about yourself as a web designer, remember that the key to building good relationships is asking good questions. When you get into a conversation with someone in real life, here's 3 questions that you can ask them to begin the conversation of potentially working together. Ask them what they're using right now for their web design platform and how are they liking it. Ask them what their marketing strategies are in their business and if their website is helping or hindering their marketing efforts as a business right now. And ask them if they can have their dream website, what would it look like and what would it do differently from the one which they have right now. Remember, you're just having a conversation with another human. You don't need to spend 30 minutes trying to put yourself out there and convince them to work with you. You need to get to know them and their business and help them with working through the website problems that they're having right now with your advice. And honestly, that tends to seal the deal. Option number 2, groups of ideal clients. If you have a specific idea of the industry that you want to serve with your web designer services, then find out if there's any sort of group or community online of those people. This could be Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups or any other groups on the internet that you can find. A past student of mine, Charlotte, was in a Facebook group full of authors when she decided to begin doing web design as a side hustle to her author career. And so she posted inside of a Facebook group saying, "Hey, I'm starting off with web design. I'm going to do 3 projects to build up my portfolio, which are at a discounted rate. If you'd like to work together, comment below." From that one post, she booked out her 3 discounted projects to build her portfolio, and then continued to book the rest of the people in the comments as fully paid projects. Now, the key to this one is finding a good Facebook group, which is not just full of other website designers, but where you're basically the only web designer in the group and you ideally have some sort of interest in that industry. So put it on your to-do list this week to figure out what are the hobbies and interests that you have, what are the interests that you already know and are familiar with, either from your past work or experience of that of your friends or family, and then make a list of 3 to 5 groups online that you can find which would be full of those people. Now, option number 3 is pitching. Pitching is incredible for 2 reasons. 1, it's exceptionally effective at getting you the first few clients before you started building up a marketing strategy where they come to you. And second, because you basically get to handpick and choose the businesses who you're going to work with, meaning that you can build really incredible first pieces for your portfolio because you're only choosing people who would be your ideal clients and who would have the type of content and industry and business that you actually want to create a website for. Now, you can pitch by any communication method imaginable. It really doesn't matter the format. What matters, however, is that you get over the fear and just hit send on the message. You can pitch by Instagram DMs, email, LinkedIn messages, honestly, anything. Now, don't feel weird about sending people pitches. People genuinely do this all the time. For the best chance of success, I would recommend either sending pitches to businesses who you are already personally super passionate about their industry. Say you send your children to a private school and you want to send messages to a whole bunch of private schools to potentially do their website, or maybe you do it in a location-based way. If you live in a certain small town or just even within your state, honestly works too. Send messages to small businesses in that same town or state because you being local will go a long way to building the trust factor. Now, if I were starting all over again, this would be my first course of action, is either one or all three of these different methods. And I can guarantee that within a week, if I really went at this, I could have one, if not multiple clients. Not everyone who you pitch or speak to is going to need a website at the exact moment that you pitch them, or is going to be ready for this kind of project in their business right now. So remember that it's a volume game. And if you do this well, you can make this a very easily rinse and repeatable process to hit the volume that it's going to require to get that first couple of clients. But what about when you run out of personal connections and groups? That's when we get into long-term marketing strategies and the things which will book you out months in advance and not just get you the first couple of clients. So let's go through a few methods. First is content creation, second, social media, third, public speaking, fourth, community leading, and fifth, pitching. Now, the thing which I believe with every fiber of my being is that you will only be successful with one of these strategies if you genuinely enjoy doing it. Waking up every day and forcing yourself into doing something that you hate when you honestly don't really have a boss breathing down your shoulder to make sure that you actually do it is near on impossible. So if you want the secret to success, it is that you need to choose the one of these strategies which you would enjoy doing most in the long run, because honestly, you will need to always be marketing your business for as long as you run it. So before we get into detailing exactly what it is that you need to do for each of these strategies, I want you to go take my quiz so we can find out which one of these is right for you. And then I want you to watch the section of the video that fits your quiz result, which you got. Head to the link in the description below and it will take you to the which client finding method matches your personality type quiz. And literally in 45 seconds, you're going to know which of these 5 options is actually the best one for you. Now, even if you're leaning to one of the options already with your gut, honestly, go take the quiz. It is such a big decision. And you're going to make a big commitment to choose one of these because you're about to spend a significant amount of time learning and implementing and improving whichever marketing strategy you get. So I don't want you to get 3 months into this with one strategy and then come to the conclusion of like, oh yeah, that one's not really right for me. So honestly, save yourself so much hassle down the road, go take the quiz, again, link below, and then come back to this video for the implementation steps. I'll wait a second while you go and do that. Okay, all done, got your result? Now, I can't give you full details just yet, but what I can say and tease is that I have something really fabulous coming up in just a few weeks where we are going to deep dive into the marketing strategies and finding clients options for web designers specifically. I'm going to be sharing the details of that event with my email list, and if you do take the quiz, then you'll have the option to be added to said list where I will send you the details of the free event. Okay, so now that you have your result, I'm going to add chapters to this video, so you can just skip to the section which relates to your quiz result. So if you got content creation, let's talk about implementing it. So when I say content creation, we're talking about long-form content creation in either blog format, video format, or podcast format. So here is your content creation to-do list. The first one is to think about who your ideal client is. The type of blog post that you write to help a yoga studio owner know which booking software is going to be best to connect their website to is going to be very different than if you were helping maybe a wedding venue owner, for example, to know which software to use to book appointments on their website for their potential couples to do a visit at the wedding venue, which again is going to be different from a restaurant who wants a software to integrate into the website to help them book tables at their restaurant and also manage all the million other things you need at a restaurant, like food pickup, for example. Different types of businesses have different needs. And so if you want to create content that is going to attract a certain type of client, you need to really understand who that potential client is, what is it that they're going to need on their website, and then you can focus on writing or producing content that is going to specifically help that group of people. Now, if you want your ideal client to be past Etsy sellers who now want to build their own fully functional e-commerce website, you can make a blog post or videos or podcast episodes comparing the different website building platforms that are in the next best step after Etsy, or maybe the different payment processors that are available and the differences in fees and user friendliness of them. So truly knowing who your ideal client is going to give you such specific ideas for the content that you'll create. Now, after you've thought about who your ideal client is, you might have already started automatically thinking about which content creation format would best appeal to them. Are these people avid podcast listeners who have a lot of time in the car, or they're doing some sort of mindless work that they therefore have a ton of time to tune into 1 long hour podcast episodes? Or are these people who are just purely Googling things and they want the written step-by-step format in a blog post? Or are these people really obsessed with YouTube? Or maybe you have an older demographic who literally never goes onto YouTube, and so therefore that is not an option for you. So think through 2 things. 1, who is your ideal client, and which of the 3 formats do you think most align with who they are and what they're going to want? And also think about your own personal preferences and abilities. Do you love speaking? Are you camera shy? Or do you love writing? Or do you love having conversations and sort of like interviews like is typical on a podcast? Do you have a space and a camera that could enable you to create YouTube videos or not? And how much time do you have to dedicate to your content creation? If it's not a whole lot, I'd suggest starting off with a blog, because that's the easiest one to do of the 3. So in this step, I want you to pick your content format. Are you going to blog? Are you going to YouTube? Are you going to podcast? I wouldn't recommend, honestly, starting with all 3 because that is going to be a lot for you as a beginner. But if you want to get into all 3 down the road, I definitely encourage you to. Now, in this next step, it's all about content ideas. Now, I put all of these ideas into my Apple Notes app, and I encourage you to start it out in your phone right now with your content ideas and start writing down the ones that you have already. And then keep that thing handy, because I swear you are going to be walking down the street, talking to a friend, having a shower, whatever, and you're just gonna have this aha moment of an amazing content idea. And so we want to have all of those ideas in one place, and ideally somewhere that's so easy for you to just like pull out and add to. Next up, no matter if you chose YouTube or not, I want you to start researching the types of content that does well in your niche or industry on YouTube. Now, the reason for this is that blog analytics and podcast analytics are not public numbers, but the main most important analytics numbers on YouTube, that is views, is public for all to see. So start looking and observing what content does well already on YouTube for your chosen industry, and continue adding to your ideas list based off of that research. Next up, get educated and learn about the content production format of your choice. If you want to blog, do some research and educate yourself on how to write the best possible blog posts, how exactly you get those things ranking in Google, what does it mean to produce good writing. If you want to do a podcast, then start taking courses or researching online to learn what makes a successful podcast successful. What prep do you need to do in terms of getting the gear? What should you buy? Which software should you upload the episodes to? How do you get this published onto Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all the different places? If you're doing YouTube, educate yourself on YouTube. There is so much to learn when it comes to YouTube. There are also dozens of courses on it. Now, each one of these different content creation platforms have their own strategy and best practices and things that the most successful people all do consistently, and you want to learn what that is so that when you go to produce the content, you're producing it really, really well. But don't just spend forever researching and educating yourself. I call that procrastinating. I also want you to take action and create your first piece of content. After that, you want to SEO optimize that piece of content, no matter if you're producing a blog post or podcast or YouTube videos or all 3. Those things can show up in the Google search results if you have produced an accompanying written version and optimized it for SEO. That means things like making sure your post is at least 2,000 words plus, making sure that you have a highly searchable title and that you framed the piece of content in a way that makes sense for search. Next, we are not just producing content for the sake of producing content. We want this to actually turn into clients in your business. So the other thing which I want you to make sure that you do is that every single piece of content that you create is to speak specifically about the services that it is that you offer and link over to your services page, or alternatively, create some sort of an opt-in freebie and get people to opt in for it so that you can sell your services to them by email. Now, for the first couple posts, the goal is to just get started and get out of your own head and get something published and out there into the world. But after that, we do want you to be consistent and to have a proper plan. So that's when I encourage you to create an editorial calendar, aka a content calendar. Now, I have an entire YouTube video on how I created my editorial calendar inside of Asana. This took me years to figure out how to do this, and I'm honestly in love with the system that I figured out now. So I will link that video below for you. I definitely recommend watching that after this one. After you've created your editorial calendar, the next thing is to create consistently. Well, I want you to pick a frequency and commit to setting time aside in your schedule and in your calendar to create your content and publish it. Now, what if you got social media as your quiz result? Let's go into the implementation steps. Step 1, think about who your ideal client is. What platforms are they on? What kind of content do they enjoy consuming on said platforms? What are they interested to learn? What kind of vibe and delivery do they enjoy? Who are they already following on social media? And what is the most popular content from those other creators that they're already following? Step 2, pick between all the different social media platforms out there. Think about the one which you would most enjoy being on and most enjoy engaging with. When you're already naturally on a platform, you're just gonna keep up with the trends and what's happening on that platform, which honestly is really key to success. Also, think to your ideal client and figure out which platform are they mostly on. The platform that you choose needs to be an intersection of those two things. If you know that Instagram is not doing your mental health any favors, but you think, oh, but that's where all my clients are, therefore I need to be there, maybe let's consider, are there any other places where you would also enjoy showing up on social that maybe your ideal client would also be there? Maybe it's not their favorite place, but they are also existing there too. The ideal platform for you is one that ticks both boxes, not just one of the two, and you forcing yourself into doing something that you don't actually enjoy because that's where your ideal client is. Your ideal client is likely on multiple different social media platforms, so that does give you a little bit of freedom and choosing the one that's right. And once you've actually picked the platform, you even need to take it a little bit further on platforms like Instagram, for example. There's a lot of different options for the types of content that you can create on there. You could create reels, you can create stories, you can create lives, you can create posts. Think about what is the overall social media landscape and what type of content is the platform actively trying to push the most right now. Spend time educating yourself because which format you choose to post on these different platforms is going to have a significant impact on how successful you are on the platform. No matter if you're watching this video once I first release it or a couple years from now, the one thing to remember is this. All of these social media platforms are competing with each other. And you're gonna give yourself a significant advantage if you're conscious of which platform is competing with which, and which features is that social platform pushing and therefore tweaking their algorithm to favor. When TikTok got big on the scene, Instagram released Reels, and people noticed that if they were producing Reels versus they produced the same content in a carousel post or on stories, that Reel was gonna do so much better than those other formats. So don't just pick the platform, but also pick which format of content you most wanna focus on producing on said platform and make that choice based off of which is going to be the easiest for you to grow with right now. And that decision is driven by what other social media platforms are choosing to do and how they're competing with each other, and therefore how they're tweaking their algorithm to benefit certain formats of content over others. Your next step is to make an ideas list. Once you get into actually posting and creating content on social, you're gonna realize that this is a daily game, and therefore having a long list of ideas and not sitting and thinking like, oh my gosh, I need to post right now, but I have no idea what to post on there. That's going to be a problem. So start making yourself an ideas list, similar to if you were doing content creation on a blog or YouTube or podcast. I find it easiest to create a note in my notes app and make a long list of ideas there. You can also put links to inspiration content, which you want to use as a jumping off point for your own take on that same idea. Now, in tandem with coming up with your ideas list, I want you to start researching. There is honestly consistent themes that you will find on every single social media platform with what kind of content does well on that platform. There are certain topics which do better than others. But I wouldn't really spend any time trying to ponder and consider, why did that post not do as well as another post? I would just put all of my time and focus and effort into what did well and why did it do well, or what do all the things that do well have in common. I actually did this research for YouTube, and I found things like habits, routines, productivity, tours, all of those things did super well. And on TikTok, it could be that a certain audio is doing super well, or on Instagram, a certain type of post which gets people to engage in the comments, or maybe other people in the comments does really well. So you need to start observing what does well and asking yourself why, and adding it to your ideas list based off of what you learned. Next up, we need to stop learning and start doing. We can spend forever learning, but honestly, your best feedback is going to come from putting content actually out there on social media and seeing how it does. But don't forget the most important thing when you're putting these posts together. We want people to learn about your services and to want to work with you. So try to figure out, how can you create a piece of content that perfectly leads into one of your services or perfectly mentions your opt-in gift where they can get on your email list, and then from there you can pitch them your services later. You have to remember that you are posting on social media now as a business and not just as your personal self. And that means that it has an end game. So don't forget the end game, which leads me to my next step: evaluating, observing, learning, and repeating. This is going to be a task that you have for basically the rest of forever on social media. Trends come and they go, and things get popular and then things die in popularity. And you want to always be noticing what is in and what's doing well. And again, try to determine why and how you can sort of like extrapolate that specific lesson onto your new posts in the future. Again, the key to long-term success with social media is posting consistently. And in order to do that, you're so much more likely to be successful with your posting consistently if you have an editorial calendar that you're following. I can promise you that every single big creator who you're currently admiring or big business who's posting on social media every single day, they have an editorial calendar. And what this basically is a plan of what is being posted when. They're producing this content in advance and just scheduling it or hitting post on a pre-prepared piece of content so that they make sure that they're hitting their consistency goals. Now, I have an entire video on my editorial calendar and how I set that up inside Asana, so I will link that video below for you. I definitely encourage you to watch that one after this. From there, let's make an ideas list of posts in your Notes app. Think about the different types of content that you could share. What kind of stuff would your ideal client like to see in your stories? What kind of educational content could you share in a reel or in a post? And after that, it's all about creating consistently. What about if you got the public speaker result? First, you might be confused as to what the heck does this result actually mean? So here are some examples of the public speaker. The public speaker could either be online or in person. In person, this would look like speaking at conferences or co-working spaces or libraries or business networking groups. And online, this could look like speaking on other people's podcasts or online summits or online conferences. Now, how do you pick which of all of these different speaking options is right for you? Think about who that ideal client is, which events are they aware of, which podcasts are they listening to, how often do they go to things in real life versus participating in some sort of online summit or an online conference. Now, if you're unsure, go ask people in real life or people in a group that you find online who fit your ideal client avatar exactly what it is that they're listening to, which events are they following and going to, and what they actually attend. Next up, we need to think of something that you're going to speak on. So I want you to think again about who your ideal client is and ask yourself, where are they on their journey? What are they struggling with most right now? As a web designer who's selling your services, you need to consider, do they already know which website building platform is right for them? Are they already dead set, dedicated to and committed to one specific platform? What are their problems that they're having in their business right now? And if they're in maybe the e-commerce space, are they struggling to try to figure out how to do their taxes and shipping more efficiently? If they're an online education company, do they need help with their sales pages or evergreen funnels? Use the answers to these questions to help you craft a talk that could serve your specific ideal client. Now, if this business owner is super new to the website building game, then maybe you're crafting your talk walking wedding venue owners through the 3 best potential website building platforms for them. Or maybe you're serving e-commerce sellers and they're already convinced that they want to be on Squarespace, and you want in your talk to talk about how they could increase their revenue by 50% by using an abandoned cart email sequence, for example. When it comes to crafting your talk, I would focus a lot of your time and effort on the title. Come up with multiple ideas, get feedback from people in real life, or maybe even chat with ChatGPT 2 to help you determine which title of all of your different title ideas is the most convincing. Then write out the main points that you want to make in this talk. And if you're planning on doing this on a podcast, then you're going to be doing that podcast host a huge favor if you literally already write out the questions that basically leads you to give the answers and produce or give the content that you want to speak about. Now, if you're speaking at an event in person and you need slides, go ahead and create your slides. Also, be conscious of how likely is it that the place that you're speaking at will allow you to directly pitch your services, or alternatively, would it be better for you to just pitch something like a freebie and try to naturally from there work that into your talk? After that, we need to get you actually speaking in front of that ideal audience. So we need to start pitching yourself to conferences or events or co-working spaces or podcasts to get your talk taken up. After that, and in order to get your next speaking gig, talk to the organizers and see if they have any friends in the industry who also host events or podcasts, which you can go on to next and do it again and again and again. Now, the beauty of this specific method is that you don't actually need to come up with that many different pieces of content or that many different talks. If you're taking the same talk and sort of taking it on the road and putting it in front of different audiences, then you actually really just need to create one incredible talk and basically take it on tour. And that's one reason why this marketing method has a slight advantage over the other things like content creation or social media, where you're constantly having to come up with new content to put in front of the same audience or to build the audience. Now, did you get the community leader result? Your first thought must be, what the heck does that actually mean? Let me explain. I came across a podcast once which was for interior designers about the business of interior design. Interestingly, it wasn't actually hosted by another interior designer. It was hosted by a website designer who niched into interior designers as their ideal clients. This web designer had created both a podcast and a Facebook community, which was full of other interior designers. And inside this Facebook community, interior designers would do what any people chatting to other people in their industry would do. They would chat about handling difficult client issues, project issues, pass along names of builders and other contractors, weighs the pros and cons and experience of using different software for CRM systems or websites or email marketing. They discuss how to improve their marketing. They would give feedback on each other's projects and websites and Instagrams, etc. The host, the web designer, would also host live streamed educational sessions, which would be interesting to interior designers in the group. She would post her new podcast episodes in there and more. She literally built the podcast and the group that all of her potential ideal clients would want to go hang out in, collaborate in, and communicate in. She was also a master networker. She connected people who should know each other and foster connections and friendships inside the group. So that's what being a community leader really is. You build and host the community which your ideal clients want to spend time in. The first key to getting this right is picking a specific niche where people inside said niche would want to get to know one another. If you pick something broad like entrepreneurs and they don't feel a connection with each other, your community building efforts are probably going to fall flat. So a niche group here is important. Second step, pick a community space. Online, it could be a Facebook group or LinkedIn group or one of the many community platforms like Mighty Networks, or you could also host a mastermind or a group in real life. Next, invite your members. Send messages to your ideal members inviting them to join and post about your community in all the places that those people would already be. Or like our example from earlier, the host of the group actually created her own podcast and advertised the group as the podcast community space. That's of course mixing two of these different marketing methods, content creation and community leadership, but you get the point. From there, it's honestly all about just building and fostering the community that people would actually want to spend time in. Foster conversation, ask questions, engage the community, connect people, host events inside the community, bring in guest speakers, do Q&As, do panels, all those things. The more valuable the community is, the more word of mouth will spread that it is the place to be. So don't underestimate the importance of genuinely providing a valuable community which is interesting to spend time in. That quality will grow your community naturally without you needing to constantly post about it or invite people to it 5 years from now. Remember, like all the other strategies, we're not just doing this for free, as much as we would like to. The community's purpose is your marketing strategy and for it to bring you business. So naturally incorporate mentions of your services or email opt-ins into the group. And from there, repeat. Continue building the community, engaging members, hosting events, mentioning your services and offerings. And next up is the pitcher. So I spoke about this as a short-term strategy, and it is indeed a quick way to get clients. It could also be a good way to get clients in the long term if you want it to be. Now, the one difference between this marketing strategy and the others is that this one doesn't really build on itself. It doesn't necessarily grow the snowball. You pitch, you get clients, you do it again. It's not exponential, buildable growth like could happen with a community or with content. But if you want to do this long term, there's a few things that you want to do differently than if you just did it for a week at the start. So here's your to-do list. First, make yourself a hit list and a tracking system. You'll want to know who you've already pitched, when, and via what method: email, Instagram, LinkedIn, etc. If you're pitching hundreds of people, which with time will definitely be the case if this is your long-term strategy, then you will definitely forget who you've already pitched to at some point. It's also helpful to have a tracking system, so if someone says, maybe next year, you can actually follow up next year and look very organized to boot. Next, I'd spend some time preparing pitches, researching what goes into a successful pitch, and even observing your own pitch's success. I try out a few different pitch styles and observe what the success rate of each is. What are examples of pitch styles exactly? Here are 3 that I've seen. First, the generic pitch. You write an email which maybe is a wee bit customized, but mostly is a generic written pitch which you send out en masse. Second is the audit pitch. This is where you record a video with something like loom.com and you go through the potential client's website, giving them feedback and your expertise on what you would tweak about their website to improve its effectiveness for their business. Give ideas on design and layout tweaks which would make a better impression to their potential customers, etc. You deliver value in terms of a little mini free website audit and then pitch them on, if you'd like me to take this off your plate and improve your website for you, then let's work together. An audit pitch is much more customized to each prospect. It takes more work, but also gets a higher rate of acceptance. So you'll need to track and see the ROI on your time. Is a generic pitch with a lower success rate more or less of a time ROI than an audit pitch with a higher success rate? And finally, the physical audit pitch. A business friend of mine actually received an iPad in the mail unexpectedly from a Facebook ads management company. When she opened the iPad, there was a video playing. It was a thorough review of every Facebook ad she had ran for the past 6 months, along with an audit on what the picture would change, and they'd also gone as far as actually recreating an entire ad campaign for her, explaining that they'd love to run the new campaign if they chose to work together. The Facebook ads company had apparently made a hit list of 100 big-name entrepreneurs and did this for all of them, and was exceptionally successful at closing them. Of course, ROI in mind, you need to think about what is a potential client worth to you? How much will you make? What's the likely close rate? And will you earn back the money on the iPad gift and the time spent actually putting together work for this potential client? Now, that strategy isn't appropriate if you're a beginner web designer watching this video doing lower price projects, but I wanted to share that with you as an example of how far people are actually taking this whole pitching strategy and how it could work down the road for you. Okay, so to finish the implementation steps, you want to pick your pitch style and send it. A lot of them. Remember, it's a numbers game. Then review, evaluate the performance, and tweak your future pitches accordingly. Continue your pitching, and if you run out of people, start utilizing another platform. Okay, so all that is well and good, but once you do said marketing and you land that project, you're going to need to deliver an amazing experience in order to get a good testimonial. But how do you do that? You follow a proven process which ensures you tick every box in terms of deliverables, and you get the project done on schedule. If you need a hand with refining your process, watch this video next and I'll walk you through mine from start to finish.